No,
Doesn't have one.
no, I put a bunch new in there yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, we are going. Sorry if you heard all that at home. Just chatting here with the students. So we are back, and we are definitely going to take some time and go over the very important homework that I assigned last time. However, before we do that, let's do some housekeeping stuff. Okay. How many of you got an email from me? Have you checked your email? Okay. All of you have an email from me. And you folks also have this email. I may have sent it previously. What this email is in regards to the Homework Manager website that you can utilize for this class. Okay. Now, does anybody have that little packet by chance with them? Probably not. But if you do, let me know. See if you have that, and I can show everybody what it looks like. It is if you bought a brand new book, it is a separate little thing that has a password on it. And Homework Manager, there you go. Pass that up if you can. It's going to look like this, okay? It's going to look like this. And the main thing you need with this is there's a password in here. Now, before I forget, this password and this Homework Manager is good for Accounting 1 and Accounting 2. Okay? So if you all take Accounting 2 and your teacher uses Homework Manager in any way, you can use this same thing. You don't have to rebuy it. Okay? Now, if you bought a brand new textbook, it probably came with it. If you bought a used textbook, you might need to buy it separately from the JCCC bookstore. Okay? Now, I have sent you all an email, and I've sent you all the same email, and it is instructions for using this website, and most importantly, there is the URL that you click on to go to your section's Homework Manager. Okay? Now, I keep talking about Homework Manager. What is Homework Manager? Okay, first of all, let me say some important things. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, because it's not worth any points. And somebody might say, well, why in the heck would I want to do this then? A lot of students like this because what it is you're going to go online, you're going to work some additional problems, and you're going to be able to check them as you go along, find out the right answers. And it's a great way to kind of test if you're doing well in the class and if you're understanding. Does that make sense? If you're ever working on a problem in this class, you're like, boy, I think I get it, but I'd like some extra practice, then you might be able to get some extra practice out there on Homework Manager. Okay? But you do need that password, and you do need that URL. So when you click on that URL and get it, bookmark it on whatever computer you usually use. Does that make sense? Okay? I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about that in this class, because I'd rather do that through that email that I sent you. But that is an option that is out there. It's a great way to learn this stuff. And I will add questions, and sometimes I take them off and put new ones there. You'll see the list of questions, and I try to group them by chapter. Okay? So if you have a lot of technical questions with that, as far as your computer won't do this, my computer won't do that, my computer is giving me this message, I am not the best person to call for that. Okay? The best person to call is the JCCC help desk if it's a computer problem. And their number is 913-469-8500, and then you punch in HELP, which I believe is extension 4357. Okay? Now, if it is a problem with the product itself of Homework Manager, there is a helpline in the information that I just held up. Okay? So, I don't want you to say don't ask me any questions on it, but anything having to do with computer, or it won't let me do this, or I put my password in and it doesn't work, those aren't Dave Krug questions. Those are either call the helpline that's in the Homework Manager packet, or talk to JCCC Help Desk. Does that make sense? Okay. I am going to tell you, however, that this is a good topic to bring up for today because the test is coming up. I've told you all when your test date is in regards to you at home. I have emailed you what your test situation is. Okay, so check for that email. You always need to be checking your emails, folks at home. And you need to make sure your email box is kept somewhat clear so that it doesn't get so full, because if it gets too full, you won't have room for any new ones and they'll bounce back and I'll have no way of telling you. Okay? But I'm going to go through, I think I have 5 great ways to study for the test. Okay? So you might want to write these down. The first way we've already talked about, and that is to use that Homework Manager website. Okay? That is to use that Homework Manager website that we've just spent some time talking about. Okay? The second great way to study for a test is actually what I feel like is the best way to study for a test. And if you can only do one way, I would do this way. The second way is to redo your homework. Now, I want you to make certain you focus on what I'm saying and also what I'm not saying. I am not saying look over your homework. What I'm saying is hide your answer or cover them up and get a blank piece of paper out and see if you can do your homework. Okay? There's a big difference between looking through it and going, yeah, that makes sense. I think I understand, versus having a blank piece of paper staring you at the face and being able to produce that answer. Understand? Okay? The students who do poorly on my tests, most of the time, 99% of the time, I could have just given them their homework problems as test questions, questions that they've seen before, questions that they've even seen the answers to before, and they would have done just as poorly. Okay? There's not a whole lot of surprises on my test. So that is the second way that is really good to study for my test, is to redo your homework. If you can redo it pretty well, you're probably ready for the test. If you can't, you're not. Okay? The third great way to study for my test is to utilize the practice test that I have emailed you. For you folks at home, I have emailed these, and for you folks here, I need to email them today. Okay? I will email those to you. And I have a practice test and practice test answers for each section. That gives you a whole bunch of new problems to do. The practice test is very similar to my regular test in the sense that it's about half multiple choice and it's about half problems. Okay? So it's not all Scantron. Okay? Now for you folks at home, maybe a little bit different. You guys need to concentrate on the information I'm emailing you about the tests. Okay? Because we have a little different situation because you're not here face to face. Okay? Several things I will tell you that I guarantee you need to be adept at doing for the first test, for everybody, is you need to be able to prepare all 3 financial statements, and you need to be able to do journal entries. Okay? Now that's not all those T accounts. Remember the differentiation between journal entries. But I will give you at least 8, 9, or 10 transactions, and you have to do the journal entries for those. Okay? That in itself will probably be at least worth a third of the test, perhaps more. So if you can't do journal entries, and if you don't know how to do your financial statements, that's about 30 or 40 points of the test that are going to go badly. Okay? Now the flip side, the positive side of that is, if you feel good about doing your financial statements and if you feel good about your journal entries, you've already got a third of the test that you know what it's going to be. You might do real well on it. I have lots of students who get 100% on those sections. Okay, they don't miss a point. Okay, it's a good start. Okay, That was the third way, right? The fourth way, the fourth great way to study for your test, and I'm going to have you turn in your textbook if you would, to give you an example. Take a look at page 73, page 73 in your book. Now you won't be able to read this, but you can at least see what I'm looking at. Okay? Each chapter has a very nice multiple choice quiz at the back of it. 5 or 6 questions. And that is a great thing to do. Again, don't just rush and look towards the answers. See if you can identify the right answer. Okay? And then they give you the answers. You can see it says answers on page 89 up there at top. Okay? That is a fourth great way to study for your test. Okay? The fifth great way to study for your test, and I'm actually going to have more than 5, is if you look right here, back here it says additional quiz questions are available at the book's website. Now, these one of the things that these textbooks have that I did not have when I was a student is they have wonderful, wonderful websites. Okay? The URL for the website is right there on the back of the book. Okay? It is a wonderfully robust website with lots of learning tools and techniques, but many students never even go there, okay? All right? I'm not sure how many great ways of studying for the test I'm on. So here's the next one, okay? So 6, thank you. Actually, 6 might be to go to that. I guess that was 5, wasn't it? That was 5. Okay, the last one is every chapter has at least 1 or 2 demonstration problems. Turn to page 67 in your book. And you can see down here it starts, and then on the next page they give the answers. Okay? And they talk about planning the solution and all that fun stuff. Okay? Those are a great way to do it as well. Don't just look over those. See if you can do them. Okay? So I don't think there should be any confusion as far as I don't know how to study for the test. Okay? Now I've already told you if you can only do one way, redo your homework. Okay? Now before we go on, just one second, Brian. One thing I want to tell you that's kind of interesting. If you look at Quick Study 2.5 in your book, and we have already gone through this one and given the answer. Quick Study 2.5, okay, on page 74, where we identify whether a debit or credit yields the indicated change for each of the following accounts. I have a test question like that on the test, okay? One thing that I can do when I grade these tests, if I turn every test to just that page that has that question on it, if the student did poorly on that question, what do I mean by poorly? I mean they missed 30 to 40% or more. Okay? If they did poorly on that question, I can almost always turn it to the front page and they've done poor on the whole test. Okay? Almost always, 99.9% of the time. If that is a question that you don't understand or that you bomb, most of the times students are having a lot of trouble. Okay? Because if you don't know how to make certain accounts do what you want them to do, how in the heck are you going to make 10 or 11 journal entries, right? Okay? So that's just something I wanted to point out there. Okay? All right. Brian, you had a question.
In the book, it has this little looks like an iPod next to some of these parts in the book.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to if there's like oral, like you can listen to it.
Um, what page are you looking at there, big guy?
67.
67. You know, I think there is some sort of, on the website, there is some sort of iPod tool or something that you can utilize. Okay, I don't know exactly what it is. If you look at the front of your book, it probably explains what each icon means. And I apologize. Actually, if you look at this page right here, it's on page Roman numeral V111, which is 8, right at the very front of your book. When that little picture of the iPod, that's what, I won't read that now because I haven't even read it myself. Okay? But I know a lot of students, when they're listening to music, they think, you know what would be really fun to listen to? Some accounting stuff. And
That's what I was thinking.
this would give you a chance to do that, okay? Or play it at a party. That's very popular as well, okay? So, you know, it's probably not a bad idea to spend a little time looking through those very, very first 15 pages of your textbook, those ones with the Roman numerals, and they will probably give you a real good idea of a lot of different things that the textbook and the textbook website has. Okay? It's probably a really good idea. I'm glad you brought that up, Brian. Okay? Good. Other questions? Other questions? All righty. Let's do a little bit of review. I want to spend some good time going over the homework that I assigned for today. Okay? But I want to do a few things before that. Again, as a review, this is making the journal entries. And then we go through, and line by line, we post those to the T accounts or to the ledger, right? And that's what this looks like, right? Now, what you're going to have then is you are going to have T accounts with different numbers written in there. Okay? Now here we only have one. Let me create a T account and put more than just one thing in there. Oh, what account should we make it? Let's go ahead and make it cash. Okay, it's debited for $500. It's debited for $100. It's credited for $50. It's credited for $110. Okay, it's credited for $20. Okay, now you're going to post all these things to cash, right? And then when you are done making the journal entries and then posting them to the T accounts, what you need to do is figure out your ending balance of cash. Are you with me? Now I want to make sure everybody knows how to do that. Let's see, 500 plus 100 is 600, minus 180 is, I think it's 420. Okay, is that right? I think that's right. 600 minus 180, okay, is 420. That is the ending balance, thus, of cash. Okay? Now, why do we care about that ending balance? Because we have to prepare those ending balances before we prepare the trial balance. Okay? We take the ending balance of each one of those accounts and prepare the trial balance. And the trial balance is that financial statement. It's actually, let me say the difference. It's a report. It's not one of the 4 financial statements. It's not the same thing as the balance sheet. The trial balance is what we utilize to prepare the financial statements. But that trial balance, if you look back at it, is a list of every account, whether it's a debit or credit balance, the ending balance, and then the total debits have to equal the total credits, correct? Now what I want to do, and I have sent you folks this at home, okay, or it might be in your light blue manual, one of those, okay? It's not in your light blue manual though, you folks here. I want to do just a quick little exercise, and it looks like this. And I just want to make sure that we all know how to do this, okay? Because I don't ever want to presuppose anything in this class. So, this shouldn't take long, especially if you have a calculator. And let's go ahead and roll the music for a few minutes, and I want you to figure out the ending balance of all these accounts. Does that make sense? All right? So let's go ahead and roll the music. You folks at home, do this as well, okay? We'll see you in a little bit. Okay, hopefully that didn't take too long, especially if you had a calculator. Let's go ahead and go through those. I just did these myself, so you folks can help me check my math. Let's look at the first four first of all, okay? Now, make sure you only have one number down here as the ending balance. Don't add up those and put the total here and add up those and put the total here. Now, if you want to do that as a preliminary step, you can, but eventually you need to have one answer, okay? Now, the debits are greater than the credits here, so that answer is a net debit. The credits here for AP are greater than the net debits, or the total debits, so we have a net credit for AP. For cash, the total debits are greater than the total credits, we have a net debit. For AR, AR, their total debits is greater than the total credits, so we have a net debit of $50. Did you guys get those 4 answers on those? Did I figure those right?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, let's go ahead and look at these bottom 2. We'll get to this guy in a minute. Wages payable, we had a liability, we set it up, and then looks like we paid it off, didn't we? Okay, so now we owe 0. Okay, what about cash? Now, first of all, is cash a normal debit or normal credit balance account? It's a normal debit balance account. What are we saying when we say it is a normal debit balance account? What we really are saying is that it increases with a debit and decreases with a credit. Now, along with that, normally, cash will have a debit balance. Can cash ever have a credit balance?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. What situation causes that in real life? You ever overdrawn your checking account?
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a look what happened here. Okay, before they did this, they had positive money in their checking account, right? Then they went and wrote a check. Cash left them of $1,300. And guess what? That was more money than they had in their account, wasn't it? So what is the ending balance of this cash account? Here's how we would write that. Whoops. 200. Okay? That is a 200. It is not a minus 200. Okay? There are no plus or minus signs in T accounts. Okay? It is not minus 200. Really, because of our understanding of cash and that it is a debit balance account normally, the fact that this 200 is on the credit side should be sufficient enough for us to know that it is in the red, that it is a negative balance. Does this make sense? So that is not minus 200. The total credits are greater than the total debits. So we have a net credit, and that's how you list that. How would that look on a trial balance? Well, I will tell you. The way that that would look on a trial balance would be when I listed cash and AR and all those other accounts, and then I have a debit column, and then I have a credit column. I would simply list $200 right there. Not negative $200, but $200. Okay? Does that make sense? Does that happen a whole lot? No. Can you think of any other accounts that might have an ending balance that's not their normal balance? And maybe what might cause it? Few examples, and again, this is not the normal situation. What if a customer overpaid on their receivable? Maybe they owed us $5,000 and they accidentally wrote us a check for $5,500. You see what I'm saying? For a minute there, we actually would have a credit balance in that AR. They paid us too much. We could also do that on an AP. Let's say we owed a vendor $200 and we accidentally sent them $300. Does that make sense? You'd correct that probably pretty soon. Cash is probably the most common one. Okay? Does that make sense? But I wanted to make sure we covered and understood how to compute the ending balance of these T accounts before we went through the answers to this homework. But let's do that now. Exercise 2.6. Now I think I was pretty clear on this one on exercise 2.6 that I wanted you to do the journal entries first and then post them. Correct? Okay. Now I'm going to put up the answers to these. I'm actually going to put them all up at once, and then we can kind of talk about them. Okay? I'm going to blow them up a little bit more, so we probably won't be able to get them all on there at once, but I'll move it up here in a second. Okay? There are the journal entries for transactions A, B, C, D, E, and F on exercise 2.6. Now, certainly, there is an understood DR right here and a CR right here. Notice how I drew lines so it's really easy to differentiate where one journal entry ends and the next one begins. Be sure to do that. It'll help you in studying, and it certainly will help me when I grade your test. Okay? But we have walked through each one of these journal entries before. I know you have some questions about these journal entries, about here's what I did, is that okay? Is there any questions on that? Yes, Morgan.
Yeah. For fees earned, I put revenue instead of fees
That's
earned.
the most common question. What if you put revenue there instead of fees earned? That is just fine. It's just another way, it's just another term for revenue and fees earned are the same thing. Good question. Some of you might have on this one put S Amina capital instead of capital S Amina. That is fine as well. Okay? All right. Any questions on those 6 journal entries? Now, folks, if you are looking at the answers of these journal entries and saying to yourself, I didn't get these answers and I just don't know what he's doing, that needs to be a big red flag, because at this point, you want to make sure that you are understanding how to do this stuff. Okay? Let's take a look at the rest of the transactions. You can see C through I. C through I right there. So take a look at those and see if that is what you got. Okay. Any questions on those? You don't need to write your descriptions, but I do think it's very helpful to put these letters here. Either put letters or put dates. Don't just do that, because it's very hard to grade it as an instructor. So designate when you do your test or when you do your homework, either with a date or with the letter of the transaction, what you're doing. Okay? All right. There's no pluses or minus signs in here, is there? In every one of these situations, the total debits equals the total credits. In every one of these situations, the account being debited is listed first, and then the account's being credited. And in every one of these situations, the account being credited is indented a little bit, isn't it? Okay? So whoever did this did a really good job. I guess that was actually me. Okay? You know, someone has to. Okay, everybody got those journal entries, or any other questions on that? Now what do we do? Now what do we do? Well, now what we do is, going back to those journal entries, you go one by one and post those to the T account. Okay? So I go to office equipment on the debit side, put 7742. I go to AP on the credit side, put 7742. I just work down that way. I do it that way as opposed to trying to do all the caches and then doing all the office equipment, because you'll miss one. You always skip one accidentally if you just jump around. Okay? So let's see what it looks like on these T accounts when one posts them. Okay? I may not be able to show all these at once, so that's all right. Let me show, actually with this new, nicer, clearer TV, you might be able to see all those. Lauren, can you see that from the back row, buddy?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, you can see the ending balances that they have computed. The ending balance of cash is 7040. Ending balance of AP is 0. The ending balance of accounts receivable is 1722. Ending balance of capital is 14,000. Ending balance of withdrawals is 1,200. Ending balance of supplies is 406. Ending balance of fees earned or revenue, 4620. Ending balance of office equipment is 7742. Ending balance of rent expense is 510. Okay. Now, a lot of these accounts are pretty easy because there's only one transaction in them. Okay. But recognize that over the course of a month, there's going to be lots of debits and lots of credits to these sort of things, kind of like cash is. So you have to figure up your ending balance. Okay? Now, before we move on, questions on those T accounts. Questions on those T accounts. Anybody?
When you're like trying to figure out the ending balance of each one, and like say one's like, say it's a debit account or something like that, and then do you basically kind of like subtract the side that's making it go down? Like if it was a credit account and say you owed like, what was it, one that's like 8,000, but you only had debited 4,000.
Yeah.
Then that would mean that you got rid of your 4,000 and.
Yeah. What?
I don't know.
Let me kind of answer that. I think I know what you're asking. Is kind of how I go about doing these. Let me just show you a quick example. If this is cash, and this is 800 and 700, and this is 300, and this is 100. Some students do it this way, the way I'm going to show you. Okay, they actually say, okay, what's the total here on the debit side? It's 1,500. What's the total here on the credit side? It's 400. And then they just take the smaller number from the bigger number and say, okay, who wins here? This side's bigger. 1,500 minus 400 is 1,100, and that's their ending balance. Does that answer your question? So I think I think that's kind of what you were saying. Okay? And normally that will be on the side of whatever the normal balance is for that account. Cash is a normal debit balance account, so usually that final number will be on the debit side, but there are a few exceptions like that one overdrawn cash account that we looked at previously. Okay? All right, great questions. Great questions. I like it when you guys ask questions, and the folks at home like it even more. Okay? All right, any other questions on the T accounts? Anybody else? All right, let's take a look then at the trial balance. We're going to take each one of these accounts and we're going to list the ending balance. Now again, on your trial balance, you want to list your asset accounts, then your liability accounts, then your equity accounts, then your revenue accounts, then your expense accounts. And the reason you'll be glad you did that is because why do we prepare the trial balance? Because it helps us prepare the financial statements, correct? Let's take a look at the trial balance. Okay? Take a look at that. Maybe I can blow that up a little more. But that is what the trial balance is. Make sure you head it up, name of the company, you state that it's the trial balance, and you put what the date is for the final balance of all these accounts. Here's the key. Your total debits have to equal your total credits. What if they don't equal? What if they don't equal? Then you made a mistake. If they do equal, is that a guarantee that you've made no mistakes? Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. But if they don't equal, that is a guarantee that you have some errors. at least one. Okay? Cool? So take a look at that. And how many people got that here? How many people got that? Okay, good. You guys are doing pretty good. Any questions on this trial balance?
Yeah, why does the withdrawals go to the debit?
Withdrawals is a debit balance account. Thus, it increases with a debit and it decreases with a credit. Okay? Withdrawals is always kind of an account that students oftentimes make a mistake on what the normal balance of it is. Okay? But withdrawals is a debit balance account. Okay? Other questions? So you guys haven't asked me the most common question on this one, and that is this. On this AP, do you have to put 0 or can you just not list it at all? Did anybody want to ask that question? They were too shy. Okay? Here's what I would say. If you don't list accounts payable because it has a 0 balance, that's okay. That's fine. However, I will tell you this. I would probably go ahead and list it and put 0 balance. You know why? Otherwise, if I didn't have it listed there, I might think, now wait a minute. When I'm looking over this, I might think, now wait a minute. I know we had stuff going on with accounts payable. How come it's not on here? Did I make a mistake? Did I forget something or mispost it? Whereas if you have a listed AP credit balance of 0, you're like, oh, it's just got a 0 balance. I have addressed accounts payable T account. Brian?
It doesn't matter which side you put it on, though, does it?
Oh, I would say put it on. What is the normal balance of accounts payable? Is it a normal credit or a normal debit balance account?
It's a normal credit.
Normal credit. I'd just go ahead and put it on the credit side then. Okay? Go ahead and put it on the credit side. You're right. In addition, it wouldn't matter because it's 0. But go ahead. It makes a lot more sense for it to be on the credit side since it is a normal credit balance account. Cool? You guys have some good questions today. All right. How'd that go? Okay. That is a great example, if you made some mistakes on it, of a problem that you want to have a little time go by, but then get a blank piece of paper out and see if you can do the whole thing again. Don't just look over it. Some of you said, I did the homework, but I know I made mistakes. Now you figured out where your mistakes were, right? Wait a little bit of time. Get a blank piece of paper out, see if you can do it. Be ready for the test, okay? That's a great one to practice on. Great one to practice on for the test. All right? Okay, we're not done yet. We have a few more minutes. So let's go ahead and wrap up a few things from Chapter 2, okay? We don't have much more here. One thing I want to point out real quick is that the T accounts that you see in real life will oftentimes look a little different. Whoops, hold on, I got to get my pointer going here. Sorry for jumping around here. Hope I'm not making you seasick. This is where I want to go, okay? This is actually how a T account or ledger will probably look for cash in real life. And this is still kind of a T account. And I will make the T right like this. Okay? The only thing is they keep a running balance over here. Okay? They keep a running balance over here instead of putting it down here. Does that make sense? Not a whole lot different. They're just swinging that ending balance instead of having it down here at 5,700. Just each time they're putting it here instead. Okay? So you can look in your book on that as well. The other thing I want to point out is this. We spend a lot of time making our journal entries, right? Now I want you to understand posting these to the T accounts. But understand that in real life, most of the time, if you can enter the journal entry correctly and analyze that transaction as we should, then it will go ahead and post it to the T account or to the ledger for you. Does that make sense? Okay. So I wanted to point that out. I want to go back to a slide that I talked about earlier. Which slide was that where we had the cycle? Sorry, I should have brought this up before. This one. Remember how we went through this one before and we were like, there's a lot of terms in there I don't understand. I think this should make more sense now, guys. We analyze each transaction event from source documents. Again, receipts, invoices, bills of ladings, receiving reports, checking statements. Then we record the relevant transaction and events in a general journal. And this is actually where you do your JEs. Okay? Then we post those information to the ledger accounts. This is where you're doing your T accounts. Then we prepare and analyze what is called the trial balance. That makes all more sense now, doesn't it? See what you've learned? I'm sorry, I get a little carried away with my pointer. Okay? You guys, and think about it this way. Think how much you guys have learned in the last 3 or 4 weeks, right? If you got, I can tell most of you guys are keeping up pretty well. You've learned a lot in the last 3 weeks, okay? And before you run off and leave me, let me give you your homework, okay? And I have to give you special instructions on some of them. Okie doke. All right, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to do there you go. I want you to do exercise 2, 8, and 2, 9, but I got to give you some special instructions here, okay? Let me see. The book is going to say to analyze those transactions and only do JEs for the transactions that create expense in 2.8 or create revenue in 2.9. Okay? So they're saying don't make journal entries for everything, just for the ones that either create revenue or create expense. No, I want you to do JEs for all of them. Okay? And then do what the book says. Then identify whether the transaction created expense or created revenue. Okay? The other thing I want you to do is exercise 2.2. I don't think we have. I don't think we've done exercise 2.2. You can take a look at it. I don't think we did. Take a look at exercise 2.2. See if I assigned it. I don't think I did.
Exercise 2.1 and 2.4.
Yeah, I don't think I've done exercise 2.2. So let's do exercise 2.2. And then one last thing I want you to do is I want you to read about the debt ratio. Read pages 66 through 67. Okay? We'll do one of those in class, so you don't have to do anything on that. Just read that. So there is your homework. You with me? Hey, good class, guys. See you later. Bye-bye.